Hello and welcome back to It'll Be Fine. I'm your host, Erica Bell. This is the podcast where I remind myself as well as you that it's going to be fine. And I am so excited because today we have our first guest on the pod. Yes, she's waving, but for all of those people who are
Podcast.
for everyone who is just listening and not watching, she is waving. But I'm very excited. She is one of my dearest friends, also my sister-in-law, lucky me. But more importantly, for the theme of this episode, she is a fashionista boss lady. So join me in welcoming Anna Reid. I always want to call you by your maiden name. I never want to call you Anna Reid. I want to call you Anna Duran for some reason.
Well, people still do, and some credit card companies still call me Anna Duran as well. So.
But you can find her on social media platforms
as Anna Reid.
Anna, R-E-I-D.
Yes, R-E-I-D, as you formally had to say before you got married.
Yes.
Begin Bell.
Yes. So I wanted to chat a little bit about jobs. As you know, my job as a professional organizer, I'm obsessed with. I'm super passionate about it. I love it. I love helping people. I could just go on and on. I remember even one day you were like, well, I'm sure you have days where like you don't want to go to work, or you said something like that. And I'm like, no, never. I always want to go to work.
Like even when you're tired, even when you like didn't have enough sleep, you still want to go do the thing.
Yes, I would rather do that than something else. Yes. But that definitely has not always been the case for me. I've had plenty of jobs that I did not feel passionate about.
Yeah.
One of my last jobs being like, I feel like the stress was like causing me to be like physically ill, just awful. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about anyone who's kind of feeling like that, feeling like really crummy about their job. We're in such a cool place in the world that like the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
Right? Like I feel like I always reference this, but like there's a kid on YouTube. This was years ago, so I've been using this reference for many years. But like a kid on YouTube making millions of dollars, like that is the world we live in.
Yeah,
you know, you can make millions of dollars from your couch.
There's opportunities if you seek them out.
Yes, absolutely. So for those who don't know, Anna has her own boutique, and she's also, I'm going to call you an influencer, even though I don't think you like that term. She's a YouTube influencer. No, but she has a successful YouTube channel. I asked her recently, I'm like, if someone were to ask you what your job is, what would you kind of say? And you were like, that I have a YouTube channel. But like, it's such a bizarre way to make a living, but it's also really exciting because like I said, like the sky's the limit. Like you're making a full-time career, and don't worry, we're not going to get into like how much you make unless you want to throw that out there. But you're making a full-time living off of fashion videos on YouTube, and I just love that so much. So tell us a little bit about like your journey getting where you are now. You know, it's not like you grew up thinking, oh, I can't wait to be a YouTuber. You know, that was not a thing.
No, it wasn't like, what are you going to be when you grow up? You know, it's like, I'm going to be a lawyer, a doctor, a vet. I was going to be a vet, you know, like never a YouTuber.
If you remotely liked animals, you were going to be a vet.
Of course.
As a kid.
You saw a cat one day, and you're like, I'm going to be a vet.
I have the same thing. Like, why are those the jobs? Now it'll be funny, though, to see what our kids grow up saying.
Yeah.
You know, like when they have career day at school, like, is it still going to be those like traditional jobs, or is it going to be like, I want to be a content creator?
Yeah. Probably, you know, because they'll want to be like their favorite content creator.
Yeah.
But I think, going back to what you were saying earlier, all these jobs, if you're in a job that you hate, I feel like if you haven't ever been in a job that you really dislike and you just dread Monday mornings and you just do not want to go to work, and then you're just always living for the weekend.
Yes.
You almost can't appreciate when you finally get to a job that you love that also requires a ton of work. Like what me and you do, like you going to people's houses, even my YouTube channel or boutiques. I mean, all this stuff requires like, it's not a 9-to-5 job. Like, it's not like, oh, I just go to work at 9 and I get off at 5 and then I'm done.
Yeah.
Like you're literally working all the time.
Yeah.
And if you've never been in a job that you hated, but it was only 40 hours a week, I feel like you almost can't truly appreciate how nice it is to finally be in a job that you really love and you're happy to put the work in because you love it.
That's the difference, like being happy to put the work in. And I think working, and you may find this too, like working for myself, I'm happy to like please the boss. You know what I mean? I am the boss.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to see things grow. Whereas sometimes when you're in a job, maybe you don't believe in the management or you don't believe, so it's like putting in those hours for someone else is just kind of like daunting sometimes. I remember reading someone's like, I don't know, Facebook quote. You know, remember when Facebook quotes are like a thing? Yes. And it was something about like living for the weekend. And I was like, this is the opposite of what I want my life to be like. Like, I want a life that I don't need a vacation from.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm kind of like getting to that point, minus, you know, the craziness of having kids.
I mean, we still need vacations from our kids.
Yes, from kids and families.
Which is also a job.
Yes. Oh, yes. I know. We have multiple hats, multiple jobs. But I just never wanted to live like that.
But that is how, so I feel like, so I have definitely had, like, through my 20s, I definitely had jobs where at certain points I like loved my job. Mm-hmm. And then there were certain points I remember like could not, I was like, oh, Wednesday, I'm going to have 2 more days. Yeah. And then like, oh my God, Friday, oh, Saturday's fun. And then Sunday would already be that weight on me, like, oh, Monday.
The Sunday scaries. Yeah.
Yes, it was awful. And so it's like, I know, I still remember that feeling so vividly. And so even when things have gotten tough with my boutique business or with YouTube or whatever, I'm like, I just refuse to go back to feeling like that. I just will not. And so like, even with YouTube, when it was such a struggle, and even I had like during 2020 and 2021, my boutique was just, I mean, all the businesses were horrible. I mean, nothing was doing good except for Amazon. But it was just so like, you know, I'm like, I have to make this work because I'm not, I cannot go back to some job where I hate it and I hate, you know, I'm just living for the weekends. Like, I refuse to go back there. So it's a good motivation. It's a part that, you know, if you're ever going through it, just know that one day you're going to be able to use that as motivation to get you through some more hard times, getting to where you want to be.
And that idea of like it just being kind of you, like you don't have a team, I don't have a team currently. Yeah. And so it's like, it's sink or swim.
Like flying by the seat of our pants.
For sure. Like we feel like badass boss women, but also it's like, if we don't make this work, like we have to do this to have something to show for it and to like bring home money for our family. And so it's like, when you're put up, like you see what you're made of, you know? Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about like how you got to where you are now, as far as, you know, I mean, college or, you know, just current previous jobs and stuff.
Okay. So I went to school at Stetson University in Florida, majored in finance because I was like, well, you know, I felt like I was pretty good with math. And so
that seems like a solid career.
Yeah. I was like, oh, you know, I can just, and of course in the finance degree, you're learning how to manage multi-million-dollar portfolios. Yeah. And then you graduate and people are like, girl, we can give you some data to enter. And then, that's about it. We're not letting you manage anything because you're 21 years old.
Yeah. Do you think you went into that too, partly because of like your parents being business owners and kind of anything to do with like that aspect at all?
Probably. Or, but I just also like, I liked finance. I didn't like accounting, but like I liked finance and like I liked the managing. I liked all that, and I just thought it was better than having just a general business degree. Like all my friends were majoring in marketing, and I just felt like it was kind of like I don't know. I just felt like this would actually get me in somewhere more so than other degrees. Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah. But of course, whenever I got my first job out of college, which was in Boston, which was for the Columbia Management Group, which was bought by Bank of America later, a guy that was over me had majored in English literature. And it became very clear when I was talking about time. I'm like, I did not even need a finance degree to get this job. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I did, but like, you know, it was just kind of like the things I was doing there, like they're not going to trust a 21-year-old with anything super important. Yeah. But anyway, I did that and I just hated it. I mean, that was one of the jobs where I was living for the weekends.
How long were you there?
I was only there maybe a year and a half before.
Still, that's a long time. When you're miserable, a year and a half seems like an eternity.
Oh, yeah. And at the same time, let's see, that was like 2004. Real estate was becoming a big thing. And And they were giving loans to people with, and not even having to show proof of income.
Oh my gosh.
And getting 100% financing.
Can you imagine?
And I'm like, oh my God, well, this is cool. I decided to buy a condo in Boston. Boston, it was right next to Boston proper. So it was kind of a crappy street. There was a homeless guy who took a crap on our doorstep.
Literally, it was a crappy street.
Literally a crappy street, but it was next to some really nice ones.
Yeah.
So I bought the place, and it 100% financing, no money down, and I rented out a room, and it was a really good investment opportunity. But I thought, oh my God, it was so easy. Anyway, I actually fell in love with real estate. So I got my real estate license. I quit my job that you needed a college education for to go and do a job that you did not need a college education. I quit my job to do real estate. I do real estate in Boston, and I loved it. And I made actually really good money for being just at that point 23 years old. But I had always wanted to live in New York City, and I had made a lot of money this past year. Like, I'd made close to $100,000, which was like obviously a lot for me being 23. And I felt like if I didn't go now, I would be kind of stuck in Boston, and I would just it'd be too hard to leave the money kind of thing.
Yeah,
like, I know I want to live in New York City. So I up and moved to New York City, got my real estate license in New York City. And whereas Boston, I was this little Southern girl and people trusted me and it was great. I got eaten up and spit out in New York City real estate. Like, I was I was, trying to be very honest with people, and they would be like, listen, we love you. We love you so much more than this other broker we worked with. But he says, if we don't sign today, this apartment we really like is going to go, and there's not another one like this in the whole entire city. And I'm like, that is a lie. That's a bold-faced lie.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. But anyway,
so you started lying.
I started lying, and I started, stealing from people and robbing banks. No, it was just like, I was like, oh man, I am just not cut out to be this cutthroat real estate person in New York City.
Yeah.
So I started working for a guy who was like the real estate, person who worked at Corcoran, but he worked with all these celebrities. He was just Upper East Side, like, knew was best friends with Ashley Olsen, this kind of stuff. And he was younger than me. At this point now, I'm 26 years old, and he was 21. I mean, he was like 19. I don't know. He was a lot younger than me. And I learned a lot from him, but I worked under him, but he kind of treated me like his personal slave as well.
Yeah.
So
did he come from the business? Is that what?
Yes. Oh yeah. His grandfather was this huge real estate guy in New York City. I mean, It was very much like he was born into that.
Yeah.
But he was also really good at what he did. I mean, he was excellent at what he did. But then I was like, okay, I don't want to just be someone's personal slave and bring them dry cleaning. Like, I really like real estate, but I was like, this is not working out. So I got, long story, even longer, I got a job in sales working for the Financial Times. And I did their sales for their conference division. And I loved it for a little while, but it got to be was a little bit like, not dreading the Mondays, like, and I just got this point where I was like, I am just not doing what I'm not happy doing this.
Sales is a whole other ballgame. I don't care what kind of sales it is a whole other world.
It is. I mean, like, it's such a good, I feel like anybody who can get a sales job, it's such a good experience, and you learn so much. And even now to this day, when people are trying to sell me shit all the time, I'm like, girl, or boy, I know that strategy. I know your strategy here. Like, I like it. I love your hustle, but I'm not, like, I know what you're doing, and it's fine. I know what they're doing, and I appreciate that. They're just trying to make a living as well. But I don't know. It is a very good experience to go through.
Yeah. It's like one of those jobs, like, you should be in sales at some point, retail at some point.
Customer service.
Some kind of customer service. People always say you should be like a waiter or like in food service. Like, you've got to cover some of those to understand.
Yeah, because anybody who's ever rude to a waiter or anything, it's like, you have never worked in a customer service.
Or like people that like go into stores and just tear them up and they're rude to people. I'm like, you've never worked in retail.
Yes.
Like, you think this is something it's not.
Just for anyone who's watching versus only listening, yes, you will notice that we had a change of scenery. Don't mind us, but we are back. Okay, so you're kind of overworking for that guy in New York, then what?
Yeah, so I was overworking for the guy in New York, and then I went and took a job in sales for the Financial Times.
Yes.
And that was okay for a while. I actually really liked it. I liked the people there. But it got to where I was like dreading dreading Monday. And I was like, I'm just not doing what I want to do. Like, because even with the sales, I started, when you have a goal, you're like, oh, let me see if I can get there.
Yeah.
And then I had a few months where I was doing really well. Like, had really good numbers and everything. And I'm like, well, what's next? Like, am I going to climb the corporate ladder? Like, I don't want my boss's job, and I don't want to be, that's not I don't want to do that.
That is such an interesting point to make, that when you realize that you don't want your boss's job and you have that moment of like, okay, then where am I going?
You're like, what am I doing? Dude.
So what's next? But what's interesting, like in sales, some people stay there and make a career out of it, and that's that, because the money can be so good.
Oh yeah.
But it is a hustle like no other. Mm-hmm. And it is to me, it was such a mind game that it's just difficult. It's just really difficult. When you're making your numbers, you're great. When you're not, you're like, I'm a loser.
Yes.
This is the worst.
Totally.
And then like, you're not making that same amount of money. You never know I don't know how people with like kids do it either. That it's like, okay, I need to have a steady income. This is not just me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but if you think about it, even the jobs we're doing now, it's very similar.
Yeah, I guess.
But instead of it being like our company being like, hey, you got to produce, it's more like we are saying this to ourselves.
You're hustling for a different
fit
for your own,
for yourself. It makes a huge difference.
Totally. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're over sales.
Let's see, so over sales. I decided, I was like, what do I want to do? I call it my quarter life crisis. And I'd always liked fashion, and I was like, I think I want to design clothes or something. So I took out some student loans, and it's amazing people loan you money, but took out some student loans, and I went to back to school to Parsons for a year, and
in New
York City, yeah. And it was like 2 blocks from my apartment. So it was great. And I loved it.
You're like, this is Kismet. It's meant to be.
Yeah. It's like right there. Yeah. It's like I'm in student housing. So it was really great. I loved it. And I actually learned a lot there. But then at the same time, I was also helping my parents out with their new retail business, which is like an outdoor fishing sporting goods store.
Kind of like Bass Pro.
Yeah, kind of like Bass Pro. We're local, and I was helping them out with a lot of stuff like to do with online, or just like stuff that just, I don't know, that they needed help with.
And that they didn't really kind of get. Probably,
yeah.
Right? They're very old school, love them, but like they weren't going to be the first to like dive into like online retailing. So like they needed you to come in.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. And just even just getting a point of sale that would work and like would do the things they needed to do. Like they needed help with all that.
My gosh.
Like,
yeah.
Cause it's just, there's so many great ones out there now, but the old school is like someone brings you something and you're just like, all right, $7, and you just calculate register. So just so many things to help with, and so I was helping them a lot, and I was loving it. Like I was loving like just even all that, the stuff that sounds really boring. I was really loving it. And so I still was kind of like, I don't know what to do with my life. I think I want to start a clothing line. Like I wanted to start a swimwear line, and so eventually I said, hey, listen, I will come help you. I'll come down there to Florida and help you with your store if you'll help me at some point kind of get me my, whatever it was I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Started. So I went to Florida. I actually really love retail. And I'm like, I actually really love retail. Like, and now I realize looking back, and I know myself a lot better than I did even at that point. And I'm like, designing clothes and sewing and designing all this stuff takes so much like just like time, and you have to be so particular, and it's so tedious that is so not my bag at all.
It's a different artistic avenue than just being in retail in a different aspect. I mean, there's so many different aspects of fashion, and that's why it's so great that you can say, okay, I'm really interested in this, and then kind of pinpoint it. But like, design work,
dude, it is like, and plus it is so difficult. It's something, if you're passionate about, like anything, nothing is easy. There's literally no job that is worth doing that says easy. It's like, if something's easy, everyone would be doing it. But like my job, your job, the things we do are not easy, but we just love them so much that we are willing to put all the extra time and energy and effort into. And with designing your own clothes and having a clothing design company, I mean, that is a tough business.
Yeah.
And retail is also a tough business. but it's tough in different ways. But I ended up starting my own clothing store, which is basically a swimwear store. So I started that. And as you know, I met your brother. We got married. And then I opened up a second boutique in where we live now. And then I ended up closing that one. That one it did well for a while. And then COVID hit and it just never really recovered.
I know.
Very stressful.
I hate that. I feel like that's the story of so many businesses, unfortunately, with COVID. Like if they couldn't pivot to something, it was just kind of like shutting down. But what's interesting now too, even after COVID, so like where we are in the world as far as like post-COVID and online, everything online. Like I remember when I was graduating from grad school, so went to Florida State, got my graduate degree in global merchandising and product development. And I remember from the time I started undergrad to the time I finished grad school, which was only 4 years, it was like retail is changing. Oh my gosh, we're not going to be going to a storefront anymore.
Yeah.
What am I about to do? I'm about to get my degree. Because I originally
might be obsolete.
Yes, because I originally was like, I'm going to start my own boutique. I want my own boutique, a brick and mortar store. And then like I get to graduation and it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So you either think of a way to evolve, obviously, like we have with online retailing and all of that, or you just kind of get stuck and you just kind of shut down your idea, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, but it can be a beautiful thing to like pivot into, you know, you thought you wanted to be a designer, but then opening a boutique was like really fulfilling, and now you're kind of doing something that you're still creating something. It's not designs, but you're still creating something that makes people feel beautiful. And what a cool like evolution to be able to see. So like, I guess that's also just a word to anyone who's listening or watching, that it's like things can evolve even if you're not where you are, where you want to be right now. It can grow into something and change.
Yeah.
Don't just give up, you know?
And even too, it's like, you know, even you have a degree and master's in fashion merchandise, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's all a big waste, because how much of, just think about all the things that you did and you learned and you know, you figured out, and you know, probably by a lot of these things you did that you really love organizing, or like, or this is your passion or whatever.
Yes.
It's like, none of it is a waste. In hindsight, you can see the value of all these things, but when you're in it and you hate the thing, or you're like, what am I doing with my life? You just can't see it. And it's like, you just have to keep going and coming up with new ideas and being creative. And
it's so fun. You can't see it, like, and I don't want to like, so like right out of college, I remember after I left a position in sales, then I was working with like a web development company, which then as I started my own business, I started my own, you know, boutique and online business. I knew how to make my own website. And even now it's like, I still use that on my own. It's like all the stuff that you think. So I was in healthcare, and then I worked for a web development company, and then, you know, all of these, now I'm an organizer, they all tie in together. Like your passions, if you really dig into things, you're like, there's a reason you're drawn to certain things, and there's a reason you do certain things. But then to kind of get to like the pinnacle of it, of like where it all ties in and makes sense, and you can have that like, oh my gosh, this is the dream job I've been looking for. It's such a cool, it's cool to be on this side of it, because it's relatively new for me. You know, I haven't been doing this as a career for very long, but it's really neat to kind of see that other side of like, oh yeah, that wasn't a coincidence that I took that step, or that I worked with those people, or even if it was some fluke thing, you still learn something from it.
Yeah. It's like none of it was a waste of time.
No.
I feel like the only thing that I heard this, I don't know, at some point, but something that is like, whenever you are in a job that you like, who is the guy that says like, good is the enemy of great? So things are good, things are fine.
Yeah.
But you don't pursue the thing that's really making your heart sing. You're like, okay in this job. You're like, I like it okay. And so you just stay there, and you just stay, and you don't go pursue. It's like you don't believe you'll ever find it, and you just stay there. I feel like that is, luckily neither one of us ever did that. Like we got either fed up or something wasn't working.
It's almost a blessing to get fed up.
Yeah. It's like there was this, you know, the old school thought is like, oh, you get a job and you stay for 25 years. I don't know why I'm talking like that.
That's how your parents would talk.
That doesn't mind me.
You know?
Well, I tell you what.
But it's so true. Like, that is such an old school, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that there is something nice, again, about the world we live in, whether it's a generational thing or whatever, they're challenging that of saying, I'm not going to stay in something that I hate just to leave and have health problems and
enjoy myself when I'm 70.
Enjoying myself when I'm retired. What kind of life is that?
Yeah.
And to find, to find a balance of like doing good work and then still enjoying your life.
Oh yeah. And plus, like, if you stay in the same company for 25 years, maybe you get like a raise or you get a different raises and everything, but you're not going to get a raise in the way that you would if you were to go to a different company or go to, you often make more money going to making like a move outside of your company.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
like a lateral, like,
yeah, like you're not just 3% raise every year or something. You just
lifetime subscription to the Jelly of the Month.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like there's a lot more opportunities out there. But I mean, for anybody that's working in corporate America that just hates the rat race and everything, I think there's if you don't feel it and that's not making your heart sing and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this for the next 20 years? Like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you can spend all that time. You can spend all this time working a job that you don't like and that you have to do anyway. Or you can spend that same time knowing that things are going to get worse probably before they get better, but just using a lot of your energy towards something that's eventually something will work out if you keep, getting back up after you've fallen down and that kind of thing.
So tell me about the first time you created a YouTube video. How did you even get into that avenue? So like you have your 2 boutiques or 2 stores, 1 boutique, and it's doing good. What made you say, I'm going to try this YouTube thing?
So I had seen, people were doing Facebook Lives a few years ago. And I was like, oh, I need to do Facebook Lives.
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't even know if people do those anymore. I'm barely on Facebook now, but I did a couple of Facebook Lives, and I had heard someone say they put their Facebook Lives up on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, well, that's a good way to repurpose my stuff. I'll do Facebook Live, show the new arrivals, and then put them on YouTube. So I did that, and I put it on YouTube, and literally, no one cared. No one cared about my video. Like
no one found it.
Nobody found it. And I think the 3 people that did were like, what is this? I don't want to, like, nobody
They're
wants
like,
that.
I don't live in Florida, because at that time you probably didn't have your online.
Yeah, I had like barely. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't like, it wasn't really our main focus. But yeah, it was just like not working. But I did, and so I was like, oh well, maybe I'll do a video on this and make it better, whatever. And I realized I enjoyed making the videos. But nobody was watching them. So then I started really being like, doing Google searches and YouTube searches, like how to get your video sound on YouTube.
You're watching videos on YouTube about how to get your video sound on YouTube.
100%. Totally. And went down that rabbit hole and like, oh my God. But the cool thing is there's so much information out there.
Oh my gosh.
And they do kind of all say the same thing because it is the same thing. You have to be consistent and you have to just keep trying to make it better. And just, there's so many, there's a lot of really good advice out there, but I started really getting into that and I'm like, why can't I make this? Why can't I make this happen? And I started watching videos like people would talk about, this is how much money I made, with YouTube AdSense, with 20,000 subscribers.
I love those videos.
Or like, this is how much I'm making with my YouTube channel. And I'm like, okay, listen, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the dumbest person in the world. I'm just like average, but it seems like all the other people are too. Why can't I do it?
Okay. That is another thing I always say to myself, which first of all, I am very smart. So I need to not.
Me too. I'm very smart.
But first of all, I need to remind myself that is not me tooting my own horn.
No,
but
when we should say, yes, we are all smart.
Yes.
Be as smart as we want to be.
But I going back to that kid on YouTube making millions of dollars. I look at these other people, even like when I was starting my own organizing business or starting my own boutique, whatever it was, I looked at these other people and I'm like, I can do this. Like, they have nothing that I do not
Correct.
have.
Yeah.
Like, and I would feel bad when I did say, like, I could be better at this. I would see websites that were just awful that were like, popular. I'm like, I could make this so much better.
Yes.
What in the world?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But I think that is a good reminder of like, there are people doing these things that are not as qualified as you may be, as I may be, as you listening to this maybe. You know what I mean? Like, don't doubt yourself your self-worth.
Oh,
Listen, this could be a
God.
whole
Yeah,
therapy.
the
like
imposter syndrome. Like, who am I?
For
To do this?
sure.
Oh, Lord, there's things
Yes.
that can run through your head. And you're like, stop it.
You know what? I read those You Are a Badass books, and
Yeah,
it was totally
good.
changed my life. Like, who are you not to do those things?
Yeah.
You know, like kind of having that shift is so important. You have to get out of your own way if you're going to make anything like this successful.
Yeah.
Okay, now continue with the YouTube thing. So you're going down this rabbit hole. You're like,
yes.
How can I make all the money on YouTube?
Oh, yeah. And, you know what, just before I forget this thought, but one thing too is people, whenever we look at these people who are successful with this stuff, we're looking at basically like their highlight reels. Like, we're not looking at all the times that they, you know, we're just struggling and like things are not working out. And like, you're just like, oh my gosh. All the times you almost gave up. Like,
like, who is it? Who did I always quote? I don't know, like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. You never talk about all his failures. They just talk about the big things. But they had thousands of failures. So I always remind myself of those things too, of like, okay, you may not be where you are right now, but just keep going.
But it's like, if you're like any other successful person, you got to have at least like 10 or 15 or 20 failures before you get a success.
Yes. One of your failures does not define you. No. I think that's very important. That I think, you know, just because my online boutique failed doesn't mean that I can't be an entrepreneur in another way and it be successful. And I'm proving that to myself now. Mm-hmm. It's like, but we get in our heads of like, well, you just can't do that. Like, what a disservice to myself.
I think it's so interesting, like you were just commenting on, to look at all these people that have been really successful. And like, even like Warren Buffett, he's so rich, but he will say, or maybe people say about him, is he has been investing since he was like 5. And so basically they were saying like his unfair advantage is that he had time. He didn't become a billionaire or whatever until he was 55, which is, you know, I'm only 40. I'm 42. I'm not that far away, but I'm like, that's super young. Yeah. But the man had been investing for like 50 years. Yeah. You know, like if I do anything for 50 years,
I damn well better be good at it.
Some millions. Like, my goodness, like that's a commitment, you know?
Yeah.
But we really just don't really focus on how many failures people have until they really make it. And there's sports analogies, all kinds of people like that. But let's see, what was your question?
To YouTube.
Okay, so YouTube. So I was posting videos, crickets. I was forcing my husband to, I would say, listen, can I just take your phone and like play my video and you can just sit over there and watch TV. You only gotta watch it. I mean, you watch it. I mean, I'm like, hey, cousin, subscribe to my channel.
I'm still doing that with my own channel.
I mean, it's like, oh my God, anybody who has any kind of success on YouTube, we're like, gosh, everyone has been there. And even if you have success, like, let's say, like, I don't know if anyone knows, like, Kelly Stamps. She's this super cute girl. She's like in her 20s and she just blew up on YouTube.
Wow.
But she's such the anomaly. People just don't. It just does not happen. Yeah. Hardly ever. Even Mr. Beast, who everybody talks about, it took him like 6 years before he had like a video that, you know, anything happened with. But it's just, there's so much time to put into it. So I was making videos. They just look terrible. And they were so cringy. I mean, sometimes they're still cringy. And I'm like, I know I can do this. Like, if other people can do this, I can do this. And I would just inundate myself with videos on people's successes so I could get myself kind of pumped up.
Getting that right, like, frequency, that right energy.
Like, you can do this. I can do this. This is going to be great.
Totally.
Crickets. And then the way things started rolling is, one, I started doing videos on like what to wear on a cruise or something, which there really wasn't a lot of videos out there. So whether my videos are cringy or not, you don't have a lot of options. So you had to watch mine.
If you're going on a cruise.
And by being successful, I mean, it got like 1,000 views. Like, you know, I was like, holy crap, I'm famous.
Yeah.
And then other thing that got the ball rolling for me is I did a video on like fall trends, and I did it way early before a lot of the bigger people had really even got their videos up. So that got, again, that video got like 2,500 views. Yeah. But it got the ball rolling. It's the little successes keep you kind of.
Yes. That's a big success when you're in it. Yeah.
And then like I wrote down, this is now it's so hard when you're really like goal setting and like how to make things work for you. Like, people always talk about vision boards and that kind of thing. And a vision boards, it's like I make them and then I just never think about them. Yeah. But writing down my goals and like consistently as I can has been I feel like has helped me. And even now I have like my financial goals written on my wall so I can look at it every day and have my brain being like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? But I did, like, I wrote in my journal, like, like, how would it feel if I had 20,000 subscribers?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I would feel like my channel is a success. Like, this is, because I really love doing this. Like, it takes so much time and energy to do one video that it has to pay you some money.
Yes.
You cannot keep doing this with nothing, no money coming in. Because the time it takes, I mean, you're doing it in the middle of the night. You're doing it crazy hours. I can see my journals now. Sometimes occasionally I'll look back and I'm like, man, I surpassed that. And like, I surpassed my monetary goals. Like I'm very big on writing down.
All
my goals.
Yes. And I mean, that's like proven.
Yeah.
To like,
work.
And I used to be so good at that. I love putting pen to paper, and I've kind of gotten out of that. But you know what I find is, like, I'll still make goals for myself, whether it's just in my head, not write them down. But I find that, like, I'm on to the next thing. Like, I don't really celebrate as much as I should.
Yes.
And I'm trying to be better about that too. Of like,
that's such an important point.
So like, I've had goals with like my organizing business, and I've realized, like, it's because I think things happen gradually, and I'm sure it's the same way with YouTube, and it's the same way with retail, that like, you're excited when you make that first dollar, or you're excited, like, she just surpassed 100,000 followers. Now you're probably, what are you at now?
Like 128.
Yeah. So she's just continuing to fly. So like maybe you celebrate those first goals, or there's those first milestones, and then the big milestones, but the ones in between that need to keep you going, like, you need to praise yourself and like applaud that as well.
Yes.
Like, my goal was to be so booked up that people had to book me out in like a month or months in advance. I'm at that point.
Yeah.
I need to celebrate that. But instead, I just kind of skim over it because it's a gradual thing. It just kind of has happened. And so now I'm setting my next goal. Okay, what do I want the next thing to be? But I haven't even given myself a breath to be like,
I did this.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah. So that is really important.
Yeah. I've actually I think just because 2020, 2021 were such rough years for me.
Yeah.
Just, oh my gosh, on
For
all fronts.
everyone. Yeah.
It was awful that, like, right now it's like my kids are healthy. They can be little pieces of poo-poo sometimes. But, they're very healthy. My husband and I, we have a good marriage, which, we've had our own issues, like all marriages do. But, we're doing good. We have a great life. Like, we both love our jobs.
Yeah.
Like, things are really good. And so I've been trying to be very conscious of just pausing and being like, I'm like loving this, because what if something were to happen at some point, I want to be able to look back in this time and be like, that was a really great time.
Yeah. Sitting in that like appreciation of it.
Yes.
But like, so what if you're not in that place, if you're listening to this and you're like, screw these girls.
Yeah.
They like where they're at. Like, what would be your tips for someone to like get out of either a crappy career or pursue a passion project, or what would be any advice that you have? I know when I was starting like my YouTube channel for organizing, you were like, consistency, just be consistent, just keep doing it. Just do it. Just try it.
Like punch someone in the face and tell you that one more time.
Yes. But it's like, just try it, just branch out, just do something, so and I think that is good advice in itself of like, if you have something that you're passionate about, just try it. Just do it, and just keep doing it for an extended period of time and see if something pays off. Even if it doesn't pay off financially, maybe it's just your passion project. It's a release.
And it also usually can lead to something. There's so many things that could happen, but if you are feeling stuck and you're just like, oh, I make good money, but I hate my job and whatever, there's probably some idea or path you've wanted to explore, but just been kind of like, I don't know, that's not going to do anything. Just explore it, because you may have to like get up, super early to explore it. Maybe spend 10 minutes a day exploring it or something. But it doesn't matter if that thing doesn't work out. It's going to get your brain in this creative state of looking for things and looking for opportunities. And even for me, what has always helped me, like, through my whole life, and this is for a lot of people, is like the self-help books.
Yeah.
And also just listening to, just people who have been kicked and been, you know, their life was crap and they finally, you know, got it together or whatever. Like a lot of those stories really help me stay motivated or just get me kind of like, okay, like it's not like, you know, like, you know, just because I'm going through something bad or maybe my, you know, things are not going right doesn't mean that they can't turn around. It doesn't mean that, you know, I can't make it happen.
Yeah.
But I do think you just have to kind of step out of your comfort zone a little bit into just play with that idea of whatever it is. If it's something like, I feel like a lot of people would ask me about like starting boutique businesses and that kind of thing. Yeah. And it gets a little bit scary when you start looking into all the things you kind of have to do, but just take a little bit of time out of your day to start looking at what do I need in order to start a boutique? How much money do I need to start? Try to find a business plan, like a pro forma plan that you can just plug in some numbers to see how much money you would have to make to be profitable and just kind of just you got to
just do it. It's like just do the first step. I think that can be some of the best advice. Because I, as you know me, like I can get so bogged down in the details.
Oh, me too.
Of like
so many people.
Yeah. Like I want to know. I don't want to just know the first step. I need to know the end result. And while I do think it is good to have a plan and have goals and all those things, I also think it's a way that sometimes we have that just decision fatigue and analysis paralysis.
Yes.
So you get so overwhelmed with these things that you never do anything.
Yeah.
So just do that one step. And, you know, like if there's things that keep coming up, those are not coincidence.
Yeah.
You know, like if you believe in God, those are probably your God-given gifts or God-given talents. Like there's a reason, like there's things that some people are good at and some people are drawn to that other people aren't. Take organizing, for example. You were just saying that, you know, like that's just not in your nature.
That's why my question was like, don't you have days where you don't want to go to work? Because that sounds hard. If I want to organize your house, I'd be like, listen, I'm going to be sick for the next 3 months.
Got in hives. No, but see, like that's what's so great about it is like, okay, this thing just kept coming up. Well, why not make a career out of it?
I mean, you would like organize. I mean, you probably do it for free. You were. I mean,
I was doing it for free.
Yeah.
I said, shoot, I need to be making some money for this. But no, I mean, there's a reason that things keep coming up. Same with you. Like, you know, I think a lot of people are like, well, yeah, I'm into fashion. But to be truly, really into it, like you are, like, I think.
Like, that is something that I've heard, you know, if you can, like, especially for YouTube, it's like, if you are able to talk about something for all day long and nobody's listening and nobody has a listen for you.
You know that's your passion.
That is, you know, that's what your thing is. There's, I'm sure people have heard of, what's his name? I watch his videos, he's got like a gazillion followers. But he talks a lot about like productivity and motivation. Yes. He's basically like, you know, become a doctor while starting a YouTube channel and like solving world hunger or something at the same time. But anyway, he talks a lot about figure out what your unfair advantage is.
Yes.
And it could be so much as like, I feel like my unfair advantage is that I will work very hard at something. I will figure it out. I don't think I'm super talented in certain ways. It's not like I have some kind of, you know, I'm able to juggle with 9. I mean, you know, I don't have anything like that, but I know that if I want to do something, I'm not going to just give up very easily. Like I'm very, I'll be like,
in
no,
business,
other freaking people can do it. Like I should be able to figure this out.
Yes.
And, you know, sometimes that is your unfair advantage. You're willing to go places that people won't, or maybe go. Yours too is that you just, like, one of yours is you have this organized brain where you can, things that just really overwhelm a lot of us.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, well, no, we'll just do this and do this.
Yeah,
and
it's like a puzzle for me.
Yeah,
so like that.
This is fun.
Yeah, this is fun. This is great. So that, I mean, that is a good thing. What is your unfair advantage? And maybe it's like that guy that you worked for in New York. Maybe it's just your parents. Maybe it is where you are in life. But for many of us, maybe it's not that.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, take it, use it. Like, you don't need to be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
I mean, even like in situations like that, like the guy definitely got his in New York City real estate because of his family.
But you had to
if
prove
he wasn't good at what he did, like Courtney Love would not be calling him up trying to sell her house with him or whatever. Like it's like, and all of us, whether you can look for different opportunities like that. Like maybe you live in a certain state or a certain climate, or you have sunshine all the time or whatever it is. Just there's certain opportunities you can take advantage of that you may not see as opportunities because you're used to them.
Yes.
But
yes, the people I was going to say that too, the people you surround yourself with, the community that you're around, that could be your unfair advantage. Like, is that going to turn into your target audience, or is that going to turn in maybe just to connections that would get you in the door somewhere that you need to be? Think of all those things and start writing them down, or start, once you start brainstorming, like we said, you kind of get on that other level of like, okay, now you are like attracting things and the right people will come into your path and like doors will open.
Yes.
Just making that step though and really being kind of committing to it.
Yeah. 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 I know. Totally. Yeah. Not giving up, not being like, we've all met people, and I'm so glad that I don't have any of these kind of people in my life right now, but that are just constantly trying to find reasons why they can't.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're just like, well, I can't do that because I got to do this. And then I have my kids, whatever. It's like, well, no, then you won't. Yeah. Then you just won't.
Yeah.
Then if you're going to constantly find reasons why you can't, then you won't. You will just be exactly where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not to say that any of this is like easy. We're making it sound pretty kind of black and white. Or just like black and white too, but it's not like that, but it's worth it. And like I said, like there's a reason if you're thinking about doing something and something keeps coming up in your head, like that is not a coincidence.
No.
That is like your passion. You should be pursuing that. Yes. And it's worth it. It'll pay off.
Yeah. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg did say in that movie, Sister, what the hell was it called?
Sister Act.
She said, if you
one or two.
It was two. Sister Act 2. She said, if you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about singing, then you're supposed to be a singer.
There you go.
I do wake up in the morning thinking about singing, but nobody wants to be a singer.
I love it. On that note, that's actually a perfect way to end. Thank you so much for being my first guest. As my husband would say, on the cast.
Oh,
I like calling it on the pod, but...
Are we podsters now?
We're podsters now. We're official podsters. I will be sure to, if you don't know who Anna is, I will link all of her things so you can, just go down a rabbit hole and follow her on all social media platforms.
Yeah.
Thank you again for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. Next time.
Cool.